Hello and welcome to this week's video. My name is Anuska Taylor. So great to have you here. Now, this week's video is all about fear. And does fear stop you from public speaking? Because anytime we leave our comfort zone, or what I would call the familiarity zone, because most of the time it's not actually that comfortable, we are going to experience fear. And the greater the leap into the unknown, the more fear we're going to feel. For a lot of people, public speaking falls into that camp. And I hear all the time from clients that I work with that they actively avoid public speaking unless they have to. But really, you're holding yourself back from going to the next level in your business or career, because public speaking is an absolutely critical skill that you have to develop if you want to be successful. And I would argue you need to learn to actually start to enjoy it as well, because that will also come through in your voice, and that will come through in how people engage with you when you do speak. So today I want to share more about what fear is, and also more importantly, what we can do then when we do find ourselves, which we will, feeling fear, feeling the nerves, feeling the heart going, the butterflies in the stomach, the hands shaking, the throat tightening, whatever it is for you. It could be all of that, and what you can actually do in the moment to help you. So first of all, when we think about fear, we are perceiving the world through a very, very limited filter. It really clouds our perception. We can't see what's actually real, and we certainly can't see possibilities and potential. So this works perfectly from an evolutionary perspective. And when we think about, for example, if we were being chased by a tiger and we know our life is in danger, we go into fight or flight. And the mind becomes laser focused to protect us. So it's about, I need to get up that tree, or I need to fight this tiger, I need to do something. We go into fight or flight, we become laser focused, and our senses become heightened. And it's all about this moment. What do I do about this tiger? We're not thinking about anything else in that moment. We're purely thinking about, how do I get myself out of the situation? Because otherwise I'm going to die. And so all our energy goes into protecting us. It goes into feeding the muscles to help us run away or to fight or whatever we're going to do. So it's all very much laser focused. Now, that's fine if you're being chased by a tiger, or perhaps in modern life, if someone breaks into your home and is wielding some kind of weapon at you. But in most cases, fortunately for many of us, in modern life, we're not being chased by a tiger. We're not being chased by an axe-wielding madman. Most of the time, our fear is in public speaking. It's in having a difficult conversation with someone. It's maybe being vulnerable with someone. It might be spending money on something. Those types of things bring up the same fear as if we're being chased by a tiger. And that's because our ego sees it as the same, as a sort of physical death. Public speaking, the ego sees as a social death, but ultimately it sees it as a death. That's why it fears it. So at the deepest level, if we peel back the onion layers enough, whether it's public speaking, whether it's having that conversation with someone that we're not quite sure how it's going to go, maybe we've got to have a vulnerable conversation and tell someone how we feel. Maybe we want to spend a lot of money on voice coaching, and that's bringing up a lot of fear. But at the deepest level, it all comes back to our fear of dying, which might sound crazy because you'll think, what's public speaking got to do with dying? But actually, to the ego, it's illogical, but that's exactly what it fears. Because ultimately, we fear how people are going to respond to us. Are they going to like us? Are they going to criticize us? And then depending on that, we really fear being abandoned. We really fear being ostracized. And from a sort of evolutionary perspective, being abandoned and ostracized meant certain death. So actually, we do fear actual death. And that's really why it feels so real. You know, it seems illogical on the surface, but at the root, it's exactly the same. And it's the same with money as well. Money is very emotional for us all. We associate it with security and safety. So if we spend a lot of money, we feel that our security and our safety is being threatened If we run out of money, we feel our security and safety is being threatened on a deep level. We may not be conscious of this. And that's why, for example, when I'm talking to clients about the investment of voice coaching, it brings up a lot of fear. It may not be conscious because we're all kind of conditioned to see money equals safety. And also it brings up a lot of shame for a lot of people. So there's a lot of emotion that comes with money. And I say that because it's all related. It's often something that I talk to prospective clients about, because spending, investing in yourself brings up a lot of fear. So the truth is, most of the things that we fear, we've been conditioned to fear. You know, as a baby, we didn't have these fears. We've learned to fear them. We've been conditioned by our family, by our culture, by our peers, by our teachers. We've been taught to really fear the world. We've been taught that we're small, that we're powerless, and that we just have to kind of somehow get through life as unscathed as possible. But the truth is, if you really want to change your life, if you want to create something new, you have to do something different that you've never done before. You might have to invest in yourself in a way you've never done before. You might have to go and speak in front of people that you've never spoken to before. You might have to go and have that conversation with someone that you've never had before. You have to do something you've never done, and that is terrifying to the ego, but it really is the only way. The only way out is through, particularly when it comes to fear. Actually just avoiding it, you're just giving it more energy. So when you come back to it a year later, it's like, well, now it feels 10 times worse than it did a year ago. And that's one of the ego strategies. It's like, well, let's just go away and think about this for a year. And all we're doing is we're just pandering to the story of the ego, because it's always going to feel fear, because that's the way it's set up. So if you really want to create change, then fear can never be part of your guidance system, because your intuition will never talk to you in fear. And I think this is where some of the confusion comes, because we really believe the fear is telling us something real. It's telling us, no, you shouldn't spend that money on voice coaching. No, you shouldn't go and have that conversation with that person. No, you shouldn't do that public speaking event. It's because we feel fear, we think it's telling us something that's actually real, but it's really an illusion from our own conditioning that we're seeing in the world. But actually, the truth is our body's reaction to this, so the heart in the chest, the hands shaking, butterflies in the stomach, the throat tightening, whatever it is for you. For me, it's always like the heart going, like, I feel like my heart's coming out of my chest. That's how my body tells me it's in fear. But it's really our body telling us there's something new here that's trying to emerge. There's something new that we've never done before. There's some possibility, there's some opportunity. It's just it's unfamiliar to us. And if it's moving us towards our expansion, then we absolutely know for certain that it's really calling us to something new and to step into something greater. It doesn't mean anything is wrong. And fear is always revealing that you're buying into a lie. And the ego is going to resist this. The ego is going to be like, no, 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 that's not true. But you're buying into a lie based on who you really are. So if we're using the example of spending money on voice coaching, the truth of who you are is abundance. The truth of who you are is infinite potential and possibility. But most of us aren't conditioned that way. Most of us are brought up to believe in lack, in limitation, and fear. So when we're in a situation where we're spending money on something that's going to expand us and help us to grow, the ego comes in and says, no, 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 you can't spend that, because how are you going to pay your bills? How are you going to pay your mortgage, etc.? But actually what it's missing is that this is the doorway into your greater expansion. And when you step into your greater expansion, those things are taken care of. In fact, you'll earn more money than you could ever have done coming from ego. So fear is always telling us that we're buying into a lie or a misperception. We're misperceiving the world, and we're not seeing it from the truth of who we are. And you know that this is the case because a lie will always feel very contracted and the truth will always feel very expansive. And this is why I say to people, you know in the first few seconds whether something's right for you. If you feel it very quickly, whether it's you meet a person or you go for a job interview or you have a call with someone like myself about your voice and you're like, yeah, I want to do this. And then you go away and think about it and you talk yourself out of it. That's the ego coming in, trying to convince you to run back to your old conditioning. But if you can actually follow the path of your greatest expansion, then you can never go wrong. So first of all, next time you feel fear, so you're given an opportunity, an opportunity to speak, or you think, I really need to go and have a conversation with this person, or you want to invest in something like voice coaching and fear comes up, ask yourself this question: what am I being called to receive and experience? So maybe with a public speaking opportunity, this is going to open you up to more business opportunities, to meet more people, to grow your business in a way you just can't do when you're hiding behind a computer, that you actually need to be standing in front of an audience, standing in front of a room full of people and talking about what you do. And just remember that life is always calling us to greater expansion, because the truth of who we are is abundance. And abundance is not just with money, abundance is in everything. It's in our health, in our wealth, and everything in our life, relationships, friendships, everything. It's an abundance of everything. And that is the truth of who we are. It's just most of us are conditioned to believe the opposite. And it's sort of beaten out of us from a young age. You spend any time around a baby or a young child, and they really are a joy to be around, apart from when they're crying, because they haven't been conditioned yet. They don't see themselves in this place of lack and limitation. But then you start spending time with slightly older children and the conditioning is starting to set in. They're starting to see themselves as separate, as in lack and limitation, and then that starts to be developed. And then that just continues to develop as they get older. And that's how we're all conditioned. But that isn't the truth of who we are. And when we can come from this place of who we really are, then we don't have to buy into the fear anymore. We can feel it, we can honor it with compassion, but we don't have to act from it, because it's never, ever, ever going to lead to greater success, to greater abundance in your life in any area. So in terms of what you can do, firstly, remind yourself of the truth of who you really are, your true self, which is unlimited potential, abundance, love. That is who you really are. Everything else is just an illusion that the mind has created, the ego mind has created to help us fit in the world. Most of society is set up to support this idea that we're all in lack and limitation all the time. So it is a challenge and it's not going to happen overnight. But even if you can start to open your mind a little bit to the truth of who I am is love, abundance, and infinite potential, that's just going to start to sort of open the aperture of this a little bit, versus I'm lack, limitation, and fear. So when you are in this place of fear, which you will be, and I am frequently in this place as well, so this is just as much for me as it is for you, it's about being present in your body. So it's not about pushing it away, because if you push it away, you're just giving it more energy. So it's about being present in your body, allowing that feeling to be there. So let's say you're about to go on stage. Now I remember this actually quite distinctly. This was a few years ago, well, quite a few years ago actually. And I remember sitting in like a green room, waiting to go on stage. And literally I thought I was going to throw up. My heart was going and I was like, oh. And I just had to sit there with myself, with my hand on my heart, and just take some deep breaths and say to myself, Anuska, you're safe. It's all good. You're okay. And I just had to remind myself of that, because from my ego's perspective, I was stepping out doing something I'd never done before. I mean, this was quite a big leap, actually, what I was doing. And it was terrifying. And my hands were shaking, my heart was going. And I just sat there silently, shut my eyes. I took some really deep breaths and I just breathed into that real physical discomfort that I felt in my body. So that's the really important thing. Most of us, when we feel fear, we try and distract ourselves. And that's kind of the worst thing you can do, because you're just giving it more energy. And then when you're making a decision about whether to do something, so you think, should I do that? Should I not? And the fear starts to come in. Ask yourself, and again, you're going to have to, this isn't something you ask the mind, because the mind is the ego and the ego is going to say no. So you want to sort of really sit into this and again, like be present in your body, but ask yourself, does this feel expansive or contracted? And it's going to be the feeling you have in the first few seconds of thinking about the thing that you're talking about. So taking that speaking gig, investing in voice coaching, having that difficult conversation with someone, when you really drop in, does that feel expansive? Does that feel like it's going to help you grow and go to the next level? Or does it feel like it's pulling you back? You know, it's not actually going to support my growth. Now, if it's not going to support your growth, that's great, but it's just tapping into something much deeper. When we're coming from the mind, remember the mind is just the ego. The ego is wired to avoid anything that it's not familiar with. So it's always going to tell you that you shouldn't do something that you've never done before. And also, I've said this before, but intuition will never talk to you in fear. It will never talk to you in lack. It might redirect you. So it might say, you know what, that speaking engagement, I don't think that's right for you, but why don't you go and speak to this person, because I think that's a better fit. So it won't just say, no, 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 run away, don't do it. It will give you a new direction. It will give you a different opportunity or a different person to go and speak to. So it's never going to pull you back. It's never going to be from a contracted place. So I hope that's helped, because I mean, and as I say, I experience this all the time. I'm always putting myself out there. I've had to learn to become sort of comfortable, quote unquote, with the unknown, with these leaps of faith, with feeling into my fear. And so I wanted to share it because I hear this so much with people, that they literally don't take opportunities to speak because they worry they're going to fall to pieces, that there's so much fear there that they're not going to be able to do it, and that you're just really holding yourself back. And you, again, part of this also is just trusting this higher part of yourself that has this kind of, that knows that you're capable of this, that knows that you're more than capable of it actually. And if you just allow yourself to go into the fear versus what we tend to do, which is run away, you'll be really, really surprised at what opens up for you. So thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you've got any questions or comments, please post them below. If you're interested in finding out more about my private voice coaching, all the links are below. You can book a free consult. You can actually also book a 1-hour voice lesson with me. And I've also got an online course. So thank you so much. Until next week, I'll see you then.